Hello TransWorld Motocross viewers, Don Maeda here at Paris Raceway for our 2018 250 Motocross Bike Shootout. Some of the 250s have been out for up to 3 months now, so as a testing staff, we've been spinning laps on all the bikes pretty much for several months now. The last bike to be introduced was the 2018 Honda CRF 250R, which we got last week. That was the last piece of the puzzle to pull off today, which is our pretty much our final day of shootout testing. We've got all the manufacturers here on hand to support our test riders. We've got 6 riders of varying abilities, manufacturer support to help ideally set up each bike. To eliminate traction as a variable, we have Dunlop 3S tires on all the bikes. And dude, awesome prep here at Paris Raceway, one of our favorite tracks to test at. We've been riding for a couple hours now, and I'd say the day is winding down, but let's check out some of the action.
Hey guys, this is Michael Antonovich. We are out here at Paris Raceway in Paris, California for the 2018 250 Shootout. All right, so for me personally, if I was to go to the dealership and throw down some money on a bike, it would be on the Husqvarna. Everything about that bike just seems to suit me. A lot of these bikes are really equal, and yes, it is very similar to the KTM, but there are certain things about the Husky that I prefer more. I feel like in the way that the engine power band is set up, it's more productive for a rider of my skill level, which is a novice. I'm not out here trying to wring the thing out all the time. I'm just trying to have fun, go fast as I can without this overwhelming hit, and that's exactly what the Husqvarna offers. The 2 map options are great, they're very easy to use, and there's a pretty big difference between them. It's not just a subtle change. I can tell a difference between map 1 and map 2 that's more aggressive. The traction control option is also great. It's really fun to click the button and then know you could, go and bury it in a corner and have fun. Or when it's slick outside after they maybe just watered or the track's been beaten up all day and it's getting slick and hard packed, to know that you're not just gonna spin the rear wheel everywhere. Air forks have not been greeted with the most praise since they were made standard a few years ago, but WP's air option is excellent. I think it's very good. It's by far the best air option that's out there. It's easy to use, and I'm an average height, average weight, 150 pounds, average speed. So it's solid for me. It doesn't feel like it's harsh. I can tune it how I need to tune it, and it's not overly complicated. It does exactly what I need to do. It feels connected to the track. It doesn't deflect or feel harsh or anything anywhere. It's very good. All right, so not all bikes are perfect, and the Husqvarna does have a few qualms. Personally, compared to that KTM seat, the KTM seat is like riding on a couch cushion compared to that tread plate, stiff Husky seat. I would swap that thing out in a heartbeat. The other thing is too, it's a white bike. It looks pretty rough after a few motos. The white just shows its age more, but that's nothing that a graphics set and some softer seat foam and a different seat cover wouldn't fix.
In the past, as a rider who doesn't ride 250Fs a whole lot, I've always liked the Yamaha the best because of its big low-end power, and it always makes it seem easier to go fast for me because there's so much low and mid. I've spent a little bit more time on 250Fs this year before the Shootout came up, and oddly enough, that changed what I was looking for in a bike. This year, my top two picks were the Husqvarna and the Honda, with the Honda edging the Husky out. Just for the overall package, it's not the fastest bike, but the Honda has great mid-range and a very good top end, and doesn't have a lot down low, but man, you can just stab at that clutch and it brings the bike to life. The chassis is excellent. It handles great, has a really balanced front to rear weight bias for me. The bike corners well, it enters corners very well, and it's just a very confidence-inspiring bike. Husqvarna is very close for me in second. Yeah, it's funny because in the past I thought the Husky was a little slower than the KTM, but this year's bike felt a little bit freer revving, and definitely entered corners better and felt just much more comfortable for me. I think a lot of that has to do with those handlebars, the Pro Taper bars on it. But yeah, for me though, I choose the Honda as my first choice. I know it's the shiny, all-new bike, and I try to take that into consideration and not be wowed by the new and exciting. But I think all around it's a great bike and the best bike for me.
Hi, I'm Cody Whitsett. We're here at Paris MX with TransWorld doing the 2018 250F Shootout. After riding and testing all the bikes today back to back, my number one pick would have to be the Husky 250F. I picked it number one because to me it felt the fastest and smoothest around the entire track. I'm used to the separate function fork on my Cowie, but after a little bit of adjustment on the Husky, we got it down pretty good. So that was a pretty good plus. On top of the bike being fast, light, with good suspension, the bike has a lot of trick stuff, including the dual mapping, traction control, the black rims, as long as electric start. I think it's an awesome bike.
What's up everybody, this is Chase Curtis. We're out at iconic Paris Raceway, out here for the 2018 250F Shootout.
All the bikes were really solid this year. However, my favorite was the Husqvarna Fc 250. The bike just hit every single area with such great momentum. Like, the chassis is solid and very forgiving. The motor is just continually building power throughout all the way to the top. And the suspension is very forgiving. For air forks, we all know they're not like the best compared to the spring forks. Most manufacturers have actually struggled with them, but WP, the AER48 fork, has just really surprised me today because I've had experience with other air forks, and the WP version just really managed to do honestly what an air fork wouldn't do with saving the weight. The motor, it really built from the mid to the top. It doesn't have as much bottom end as some other manufacturers, but I chose it over everything else just because of how solid it nailed almost every mid, bottom, top with an even power curve. The chassis was real forgiving on the bike, but one thing I really did not like the best about the bike was it wasn't the most settled coming into the corners. I'm sure if I had more time on the bike and was able to work with more of the settings, I could get that fixed, but the bike really surprised me today, and I made sure to ride that back to back with the KTM, which is my second pick. The KTM was my second pick because it almost hit everything just as well as the Husky, The only downfall was I felt like the power was not as smooth as it was in the Husky. Husqvarna had a really smooth power curve from the bottom to the top, where the KTM, it really lacked in the bottom end, but kicked on through the mid. Another thing about the KTM that I felt held it back were the bars. The bars took a little bit to get used to, and as simple as something like that is, they weren't the most comfortable bend, which stinks because that's such a simple part, but I would have liked to ride both the bikes with the same bars just to get a better feel. But overall, both those bikes were really solid and it was really close.
This is Talon LaFontaine. We're out here at Paris Raceway and we just finished up the 2018 250 shootout for TransWorld magazine. For me, this was definitely one of the harder shootouts I've done. All the bikes were really close. The top three was really tight. I think I could have, on any day, picked any of my top three to ride or buy myself. The Honda was great this year. It's a brand new bike. It's kind of been waited for. A lot of us were anxious to get on it, and it didn't disappoint. It was great, but for me, I picked the Husky as my #1. I liked it a lot. I think it just covers all the bases really well. It turns well, handles good. It's fast. It's one of the fastest bikes, and that's kind of why I picked it. I just overall, as a whole package, it worked the best, and I also think it looks sick. It's only a white bike and it's kind of on its own, and it looks sick. If I were to pick something I didn't like about the Husky, it would probably be something really small, like the seat is really grippy, and I think after a little bit it would just grip a little too hard on the butt. But other than that, it was great. One more thing though, the air fork, the AER fork, is really good, and it's definitely one of the best production air forks, but I still think if that bike had spring forks, a good set, that it would just make that bike that much better.
Hey everybody, this is Pat Foster with TransWorld. What a great day we had out here today at Paris, wrapping up our 250F 2018 shootout. I gotta tell you, every year it gets harder and harder to make these decisions. Bikes are getting so good, so competitive. But I gotta tell you, I'm choosing the Yamaha. And for me, the Yamaha's just got a pretty favorable package for a lot of reasons. Number one, I love the motor. For me, the Yamaha seems to have considerably more low end and mid range, which for a bigger guy like myself who normally wouldn't spend a lot of time on a 250F, that's a pretty big deal. There's a lot of big jumps out here at Paris. And it's interesting, Paris was an interesting place to test. Although there's not a lot of hills or places to test horsepower, there's a lot of big jumps out here, which has proven to be a really good metric to figure out how much power is getting to the ground. I mean, how much easier is it to jump this certain jump on this bike versus that bike? It was actually pretty telling today. And for me, a lot of these jumps are significantly easier to do on the Yamaha. It comes on strong on the low end. It has considerably more mid-range than a lot of the bikes. It doesn't have quite as much top as some of the other bikes, but by the time you get to the top end, the Yamaha's already done what it needed to do. I mean, and it's got great top end anyway. But for me, you just can't beat the Yamaha motor. It's in all the right places for me. It's hard to start with the motor and not talk about the suspension, because that's the other thing that's so notable about the Yamaha. When I get on that bike versus everything else, it's so plush. The suspension it's supple on the initial small bumps, but great bottoming resistance. It's considerably more comfortable to ride. And hey, look, the bike's a little bit bigger. It's a little more favorable to a big guy like myself. I can see how smaller guys might think it's too wide, a little too big feeling. It's very comfortable for me. Of course, the ergonomics could be slimmed down a little bit. It's pretty good in the corners, not the best, but overall, it just does a lot of things really well. It handles well, it's very planted, it's very predictable. Like I said, it doesn't corner the best, but the straight line stability is excellent. And all of those things combined is just very confidence inspiring, and that's why it's my choice. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm interested to hear what everybody else had to say. We haven't talked yet, so I'll find out when you find out. Thank you guys very much.